Oh. Yeah, I'm waiting for Mike to join the conversation again. Voilà. Hi
Hi.
again. Hey. So yes, you were saying, Mike, إن عم نحكي على the political scene, يعني the impact of the political
Yeah.
leaders.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes, between the IMF program, between sanctions, between the political reforms. البلد, it needs a whole new structure, and I don't know what it's going to take to get us there. But, I try to stay hopeful because I have to be hopeful that we're going to be able to get there eventually. لأنه there is so much at stake for so many people that إذا بدي أقول لك والله ما فينا نعمل شيء لأنه النظام السياسي، ما فينا نعمل شيء لأنه حزب الله. طيب, I'll pack up my bags and I'll leave. Then what am I doing all this for?
100%. طيب مايك، كمان بدي احكي عن هلا على الليره شوي، انه اكيد a lot of people are worried. يعني اليوم شفنا انه technically Lebanese pound lost around 60 to 70% of its value وبسرعه كتير. هلا the plan adopts a rate of 3500. هيدا the new plan, the latest one. وبنشوف انه في huge discrepancy اليوم، انه عندك several rates. عندك the exchange rate، عندك the fresh dollars rate، عندك ال OMT rate، وعندك ال rate that you وقت عندك دولار بالبنك بدك تسحبه هون عندك rate تاني. And don't you consider that this plan, by giving a 3,500 rate in the plan, they are acknowledging and declaring that the exchange rate is at least 3,500?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't really a secret, though. They didn't need to acknowledge it. It's been pretty known because so long as a parallel rate exists, it means that the central bank is not able to control the rate. I don't know how they came up exactly with the 3,500. They probably did some analysis to figure out what's the a fair value for it. It's probably, it may be too low. Maybe it needs to be higher, but there's going to be a crawling peg and it's going to go up gradually over time. صعب
But this,
كمان تعملي فجأة تعملي 5,000. If you do it over time, society can adjust, the economy can adjust to it.
but also, do you think it's fair for depositors who have dollars account to withdraw at 3,000 when the plan is at 3,500, let's say? Is it fair?
هلا هيدا لأنه ما في تنسيق بين مصرف لبنان والحكومة. Ideally, you would have a coordinated approach so that you can not, I mean,
Like
it's,
we said before, exactly. They need to coordinate, يعني يشيلوا their
it's
problems
also,
aside and coordinate together for the better of the country يعني كمان.
I mean, it's also not fair that شخص حول وديعته من الليرة للدولار من شهر يسحبها هلا على 3000 3500 whatever it is, واللي تركها دولار تركها ليرة ما يقدر. I mean, there's a lot of equity questions here, but again, we don't know what the plan says 3,500, but we don't know what are they going to do with deposits. I don't know. I know deposits, the chance of people getting deposits back in dollars is very low. Okay, I mean near zero. So
Let's
كله بده
say it,
يتحول على
yes.
الليرة. Yeah, كله بده يتحول على الليرة.
So
So
lirification رح تعمل effect على الاكسشينج ريت كمان، رح يطلع رح
which is
يخلينا
why,
يأثر على البوند.
which is exactly why you need to get those deposits that بالدولار اللي you can't pay, the big deposits out of the system. لأنه لو ما فيك تحوليهم على الليرة. الأصغر بدك تحوليهم على الليرة, and you need capital controls and but yeah, there's going to be an impact. بس ما بنعرف كيف هيدي بدها تنعمل لأن الخطة ما فيها تفاصيل من هالنوع السنة.
ايه شفنا ما في تفاصيل، وكمان اليوم يعني هيدي BDL doesn't have enough reserves to defend the peg actually.
No way. I mean, right now, if you remove capital controls now, it would be there's not really any control over how weak the lira can get. The capital controls are really the only thing that's holding it.
And where do you see the Lebanese pound in the upcoming period?
Unpredictable. Nobody can predict exchange rates. It's fundamentally, it's not predictable.
طب let's say you don't get the IMF loan.
Well, okay, I'll tell you this.
Mm.
I'll tell you two things. One, there's no upper limit to where an exchange rate can go. We look at some other countries and we see what's happened. And two, we know what it takes to control the exchange rate. You need
Mm.
to you need to increase the demand for lira, and you do that by giving people confidence in the economy, investment opportunities in the economy, our ability to get out of this crisis. أو بدك تعلي supply of dollars, and you do that through getting more inflows, and you get inflows through, I mean, IMF program is one, exports, tourism, foreign investment. Hey,
بس
more
هول كلهم
supply
ما
of
رح يرجوا
dollars.
يعني انه export انه it takes us time يعني it's gonna take us time to start exporting let's say. واليوم عم بتقلي اذا ما اجى اي ام اف مشكله وريميتنسز انا today I see it انه اوكي رح يضل يجي remittances على لبنان but today with COVID-19 situation a lot of expats maybe are losing job having a cut of salary كمان it's going to impact indirectly the country plus investments there is no trust you know, even the diaspora will not invest anytime soon in the country so again there is no way to protect it.
I mean, if everything goes wrong, that's a problem. That is going to be something, a place we don't want to be. And if everything goes right, that doesn't mean that we're in the clear. Everything can go right, and we could still have problems because things never go as you plan. But if we don't make the proper decisions today, there's no limit to how far the lira can devalue, and that can cost everybody their savings, and it can cost them the value of their wages, and it could be so catastrophic to the country and to everybody that lives in it. So we need to take the steps now, and we take them fast. There's not really any time to waste.
There is Matthias who's been asking since the beginning of the talk. He wants to know more some of your points in your last Finance for Lebanon tweet or article.
أي وحدة.
بتصور على plan that you were mentioning your plan and how to save the country, how to save depositors. I guess this one. Oh, you know what, Matthias, if you are hearing us, please clarify that point so we can know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get back to that.
Yeah, and we'll get back to that. In the meantime, we'll get back to that. In the meantime, also, I still have a question for you, Mike. And many believe that this plan is a threat to the private sector. Yani, it erases the private sector, basically, which are the center of the Lebanese economy and are needed to help the country get back on its feet. Also, there's no guarantee that this crisis won't happen again, that even expats and diaspora will be ready to invest anytime soon, especially, given that all the deposits are basically gone. So any thoughts on that? Any ways to work on that front, or ما فيش حل أبدا?
Money is attracted to investment opportunities. So if you create investment opportunities in this country, the money will flow back. Investment opportunities around a framework that guarantees the rule of law, protection of investments, minimal corruption. If you don't do that, yeah, there's no money's coming. Okay, period. One idea that I had, and because you're right, the diaspora has been financing this country more than anybody, more than the Eurobond holders, more than Bidikia. And we need to keep them engaged in this economy. We need to keep them participating in it. The diaspora will, wealthier people, business people, entrepreneurs. So on the one hand, you need to create the structure that encourages them to participate by, having investment opportunities. That takes a whole lot of reforms: political reforms, legal reforms, economic, financial reforms. And I had written before about one other possible way to incentivize them, which is to basically make it so that if their continued participation in this economy helps us to get out of this economic crisis, creates a broad-based recovery with needing not just economic metrics, but social metrics too, then at that point, we do have a lot of, we'd have, an amount of state-owned companies and assets. Those can be used then to make up some, but not all, of the loss they're taking today. But only after the people who would be hurt by doing that would not be hurt anymore because you're already out of the crisis. there's questions around that and the morality of that. But my logic was, if doing that helps make everybody else better off, then maybe it's something worth thinking about. But doing it today would make people worse off, getting nothing, and it's I think it would be an immoral thing to do.
Okay, I think that Matias is talking about your last plan, future value recovery for depositors.
Yeah.
Can you
Well,
clarify maybe?
sure. Well, this is just what I was, this thing that I just described to you was from that. So what I did in that article was I looked at, okay, I'm hearing a lot of things about how depositors can be made whole. Okay. So let's look at each one of them one at a time and see, can they be made whole from this option, that option, that option. One option that I looked at, which has been thrown around, is like, let's just wait. Eventually, dollars will start flowing back into the economy through various means, like I said, exports, tourism, whatever. And then we can use that to make up people's losses. But then what I found after digging into it is that actually you can't, because when a dollar flows into this country, like let's say you're an investor, you want to invest in a project in Lebanon. بتجيب dollar, you sell it to مصرف Lebanon, you get lira مقابله, and you invest in the domestic economy. هلا وقت مصرف لبنان اشترى هالدولار منك, he sold you a lira in exchange. He created this lira. It's a new lira that was created. So now Masrif Lebanon has $1 of an asset that it got from you, but it created this liability of a lira that it used to pay you. And now its balance sheet is balanced. If you take that dollar and you use it to pay back a depositor, now Masrif Lebanon's assets went down, but its liabilities are still the same. هيدي خسارة. And that's exactly how we got to the problem that we're facing today. So we can't use the same approach that got us here, make up losses for one group and create new losses in the system. So even if the economy recovers, you can't make up depositors' losses. Now, you can use state-owned, the revenue from state companies. I talked about that earlier, so I won't go into it again. There was an option to sell state-owned companies and use that money to pay back depositors. I think that's fundamentally immoral and should not be done, and it's a terrible idea. There was an option of, well, let's just freeze the deposits for a while. That doesn't work, because freezing deposits, you still have to pay them back eventually. So you still need a source of money to pay them back. If you don't have a source of money, so when you unfreeze them, so ما حتكون استفدت من شيء. And the last option was converting them to lira. Like some proposals have said, let's recapitalize the banks using government T-bills, treasuries. هيدي معناتها let's convert the deposits to lira. And I don't need to explain to your audience what the effects of that is. It means a lira that's worth very little. It means severe price inflation. It means everybody gets hurt. So the conclusion of it was, there's very few ways to make up depositors' losses. Let's take those deposits, let's put them in a recovery fund. Okay, when the economy is doing better, then we can start filling that fund in some ways with maybe the profits of state-owned companies. And then let's do a bail-in into bank shares, because that's really the most equitable way to give people the possibility of recovering money. They're incentivized to stick around. They're incentivized to make sure the economy grows, because that's how the banks that they now have shares in will make money. Because there's really just no other option. And if somebody has one, please, let me know what it is. Yeah. But I've not been able to find another way.
No, I agree with you, because also seeing the numbers, I don't find another way. But there's someone asking here, Garcia, how much of the losses will be borne by the shareholders? Could you please provide the numbers? I think it's around 20, but just make sure I'm correct.
Well, the total capital base of the banks is, I think, in dollars, based on the new exchange rate, about $14 billion.
14?
Based on the 14 on the new exchange rate.
On the new one.
Yeah,
okay.
20 on the old exchange rate.
Okay.
But so it's shareholders, it's owners of the common equity, it's preferred shares, it's any kind of market instrument that's equity-like. And that's, I think, what the 14 billion is. And so their equity would be wiped out. So basically what that means is that they would not be shareholders in the bank anymore.
But today you will have new shareholders in the bank. It will be common people that maybe don't have the knowledge how to run the banks. how will that happen? How will that structure be? You know, that's also a big question mark there.
Exactly. Well, you need a banking resolution commission to manage that process because you're right. It's not average people who are going to be bailed in. It's very wealthy, sophisticated investor type people. But still, you know, you can't just have a new cast of characters and then say, okay, now you run the bank.
Exactly.
You'll have a transition period, and that's part of the details that are not yet in the plan, but they're implied because you have to do it. And we can look at how other countries have done something like this, and that's pretty much how it works.
And one of the last questions, Mike, for today. A lot of people have been asking about the gold reserves. Why don't we use the gold reserves? What's your opinion on that?
Because the gold reserves are a very last resort for us to have something to import the absolute essentials. If things go as they most likely will go, which is we do nothing, we implement no plan, we kick the can down the road, we find ourselves a year or two from now with no reserves left, having trouble importing food, having trouble importing fuel. In the current environment that we have, the gold will be squandered. It'll buy us a year or two, and then it'll be gone. So let's keep that until we have a proper structure, a proper plan, a productive use of this resource that we have. And then we can talk about using it. But now, at this stage of the process, there's not really a benefit in talking about it.
Okay. I'm just thinking if there's any other question that we did not answer already. Has anyone? Okay, just a second. Why does it take so much time until 2024 to hit 0% fiscal deficit if government won't be paying interests on Eurobond?
Because, well, let me see which deficit, because there's the primary deficit and then okay, so he's talking about the primary deficit. The primary deficit actually does not include interest. So this is just the government revenue from taxes and non-tax revenue minus expenditures except for interest. So it takes us that long just to get to a zero balance without even taking into account interest. Once you add interest on it, we're actually still in a deficit at that point.
Okay. There's Shaker asking, but I think you already answered that question. How was the USD LBP rate calculated at 3,500? You said basically you don't know on what they based this assumption, right?
Yeah, the 3,500, I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Okay. 1 second also. Can the LBP in the future be freed from the value of the dollar?
I mean, that's eventually where we're going, I think. What
Clearly.
they're proposed is a crawling peg, so to kind of do it gradually. But eventually you're going to end up in a place where you have, like most other countries, a floating rate, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because imagine if we had a floating rate 20 years ago and the currency was depreciating because of political and economic mismanagement, how much pressure there would have been on the political class to implement reforms. So it's in a way, it's a tool for political accountability. But you know, you manage it also. If you have overshooting, you can correct it. And so, but you do it slowly so the economy can gradually adjust to it.
And people adjust to it, exactly.
Yeah.
Mike, also another question from Omar. He's saying banks are still exchanging deposits to USD while freezing them for a year. Why? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the reason they're doing it is because they just don't care. What do they care? If you agree to freeze a liability that they have, okay, بيحولوا لك إياه على الدولار. دولار ما في. So whatever, you're not getting it back in dollars. So if they're fooling. There's a lot of things banks are doing that is very unethical towards their customers. They're doing this, which I explained to you why it's unethical, because they know that people aren't getting their dollars back. They're doing a lot of other things. They're convincing depositors to voluntarily exchange their deposits for some kind of instrument that is non-voting, like a convertible bond, like preferred shares, which these banks know they're going to be restructured and recapitalized, and their equity is going to be wiped out. If you convert your deposit into an instrument like that, do a voluntary bail-in today, you will most likely lose that because it is subordinated to your deposit. So keep your money as a deposit. ما تحولها على الدولار. It's not going to make a difference. وما تجمدها. You know, listen, I take all that back because I don't want to give advice to people on these kinds of matters. But the thing is, banks are being unethical with their clients, and I think that's a big problem.
And someone's asking, what do you think about the Algae product? You know, the 2.1 product.
Yeah, I mean, these are all gimmicks. Like, it needs to end. There needs to just be a solution. All these BDL circulars, all these audit products, whatever, they're just gimmicks. You know, let's just solve this problem and stop wasting time having to analyze every single, you know, crummy circular and whatever that comes out and try to figure out how this fits in with the government plan and the long-term solutions. You know, these are just kicking the can, and it's really not even worth focusing too much on them.
Sorry, I'm having too many questions. Well, I'm just gonna
No, no
ask you a few
problem.
ones. Is it better to buy real estate with your dollars or keep them in the bank for a billion?
I don't know. No, it's I can't say. I don't know.
Okay. Can you sue banks?
You can sue anybody you want. I think people who want to know what their legal recourse is in respect of their deposits and them being frozen should talk to a lawyer and figure out what recourse they have.
Okay. Any possibility benefit to foreign banks coming in and acquiring these banks?
Once you restructure the system and you have clean banks and you have an economy that's back on track and you have investment opportunities, yeah, you'll have foreign banks coming in. Why not? We should encourage that.
That would bring
Right now,
money.
yeah, right now not so much, but in the future, yeah, you can go there.
Okay, finance guru is asking, where are we heading if the plans were not implemented?
We're heading to a pretty bad place. We're heading to the lira losing a lot of its value, an effective haircut on everybody, poor and rich, of a very large amount. We're heading to civil unrest. We're heading to a lot of suffering if we don't move forward with a plan that works and that's fair to everybody, and move on it very quickly.
Okay. Would the banks be obliged to sell their assets abroad when going through restructuring? Yes.
Yeah, that's one source of recapitalization. And I remember bank assets abroad aren't themselves new equity because they're already reflected in the equity position. But if they have an asset abroad that's on their books for $1, but they can sell it for $2, that extra dollar actually is a source of recapitalization. So yeah, that definitely would be looked into.
Okay, so several persons have asked me about bank loans. What will happen to bank loans? Probably the USD loans they're talking about.
Yeah, there would need to be a commission that figures out how to amend the loans that are in dollars to reflect if we move towards devaluation of the lira, you need to do something about bank loans in dollars. You need to convert them to lira at a specific exchange rate, and you need to do that across the board. That's not really mentioned in the plan, so I don't know what they're going to do, but it is definitely something they have to do, because if you don't do it, you're going to have the number of non-performing loans shoot up. You're going to have people not being able to pay their mortgages anymore, and it just add a lot of stress on the system and will hurt a lot of people.
Okay. Edmond's asking, in 1985, the Lebanese pound was devalued 1,000 times. How would this be different?
Exchange rates are not predictable, but they have no upper limit. So we have to do the reforms, or we could end up there. No, there's nothing stopping us from ending up like Zimbabwe or worse than Zimbabwe if we don't do the reforms that we need.
Okay, Mike. Ronald's asking, will subordinate debt banks be written off, and why? Yeah.
Yes, most likely, because because the plan says that market instruments will get written off, and you know, if you look at how the capital structure works, you know, the equity gets written off first, then equity-like instruments like preferred shares, you know, subordinated debt, all that gets written off because that'll in the capital structure, that's where the losses get allocated first, and then you go to depositors at the end.
I think you've got a lot of fans here, Mike. Someone's asking you, are you offering your consulting services to any government official?
No.
No, too bad. You should.
There's people I'm sure smarter than me who are working on it, so I'll stay on the outside, and they read our stuff, so we
Exactly. I'm
influence
sure
them
they read your
indirectly.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, indirectly on Twitter. Everyone reads just your stuff, by the way, and the blog that you have.
yeah.
Do
I
you,
prefer staying on the outside because then I can criticize everybody, and I don't have to deal with anybody getting upset with me.
do you see a scenario where the pound would be suspended from circulation?
The Lebanese pound.
Yeah, I guess that's what you mean.
I
Hmm.
don't. No, I don't. I don't know why that would happen, but maybe I'm missing something. But I don't know why that would happen.
Anyway, Mike, we're gonna end it here. Someone's saying, Omar saying you're the smartest, Mike. A lot of compliments tonight, and we are really thankful for you for being so honest, Mike, for telling us what's out there, what's awaiting us, and for clarifying several points in the government reform plan. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you as a guest tonight, and hopefully we might have you again in the future. And that's it.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you
guys.
for sorry. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And if your audience wants to keep up with these discussions, and we comment on a lot of the developments in the economy here, they can follow us on Twitter. They can find us through the website that you mentioned, financeforlebanon.com. But
I'm
all of
gonna
us are on
share it
Twitter.
next also. I already
Yep.
shared it last on Saturday, but I'm gonna share it again today after the live. So people now who participated in the live would know exactly which website to follow. Also, I'm gonna share your Twitter name so they can follow you on Twitter. I follow Mike and I really, really, really love his work, not in front of his face, but I really love what he says.
Thank you, Dee.
And that's it for tonight, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, ciao, bye, bye everyone. Ciao.